So excited. It's been a long 3 years waiting to be able to do this again and have you back. A lot of familiar faces, but a lot of new ones as well. So I hope I get a chance, if I haven't met you yet, please make sure that we meet before the weekend's over. As Jaymie mentioned, I'm the new CEO. I was previously the Director of Victim Services. So I've been with MADD for 7 years. Been part of the conference for as many years. I remember the first time I was at the conference, as Jaymie mentioned, people come in, you folks come in, you're not quite sure who we are and what we're going to do over the weekend, but pretty sure that when you leave this weekend, you look back on this as a very positive experience. Quite frankly, I don't know that as much as what we do as the space we provide for all of you to connect with each other and share your stories, share your journeys with other people who understand what you've been through. Tonight we have a kind of a unique thing. We're really excited about this. We certainly MADD Canada and I think MADD US are both sort of historic moments. Jaymie is our youngest national president ever, and I think that's probably true of MADD US as well. And we just thought it was a really good opportunity to talk to two young women who are leading two national organizations and leading the fight to stop impaired driving in their respective countries. So we're really excited to have Otte, who is the national president of MADD US. Thanks for joining us, Alex. And of course, you've met. I don't know that we can hear you, Alex. Try again, Alex.
Can you hear me now? Thank you so much for having me.
We're really excited. So you've heard a little bit about Jaymie Lynn's story. One of our traditions, Alex, when we have people come who've had lived experiences, is we kind of let them tell their own story as much or as little as they want. But I will just say that you've been president, I think, since January 2021. You're from Kentucky. Is that where you are now, or?
Yeah.
Yes, still in Kentucky. And you were a volunteer, I think, with MADD US long before becoming president. So maybe, do you want to share with the group a little bit about your story and how you came to be connected with MADD?
Sure. I came to MADD a little over 12 years ago in July of 2010. My story is a little different, as all of our stories are very different. But I was sitting on a jet ski on a lake. My dad lives on a lake still to this day. I was sitting on a jet ski, and there was a 17-foot bass boat coming at 70 miles an hour under a nearby bridge. When I saw him coming, I did what I had been trained to do. I gave my family a thumbs up to let her know I saw him coming and I wasn't going to move. When you get your boating license, they teach you if the boat's coming towards you, just stay where you are and wait for them to pass you rather than trying to anticipate where they're going to go. The boat was headed towards my mom and my brother, who were across the lake from me. My mom screamed, he banked to the left, and never straightened up. So the boat ran me over, going a little over 60 miles per hour, threw me off the jet ski. I landed face down in the water, and the boat landed on top of my body. The man who ran me over was nearly 3 times over the legal limit 2.5 hours later.
And when did you were 13, when did you or your family get involved with MADD? Was it right away or was it a couple years later?
We became involved in MADD very quickly. MADD reached out to my parents and of course attended court with us and things like that. And I got involved with MADD several months later and just began volunteering and speaking at schools across the state of Kentucky, leading to I was a National Teen Influencer in 2014 and an Advocate of the Year nationally in DC in 2015, so stayed really involved from a volunteer perspective.
When did you, I know your history with MADD, but when did you first connect?
So likewise, it was really shortly after my brother was killed. Someone from Canada had reached out to my parents initially. They ended up attending the victims conference, came home and said, you need to come. So I did, I think, the following year, and it just kind of spiraled after that. qualified and received the Louise Torrey bursary, which was still one of the biggest honors of my life. Various activities and conferences then over those 7 years, and I applied to be the national president, and about 2.5 years later, so yeah, it was almost right away though. It's been a 7-year journey.
And Alex, am I correct that you would be the first president who was an injured survivor for MADD?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest, as is Jaymie Lyne, but then I'm the first who was injured and rather than lost someone.
And so when you decided to try to become president, was that a concern of yours that in the past there had always been maybe someone who lost a child?
So interestingly, I didn't really decide. A board member came to me and asked me, and I said, I'm not a parent. I'm way too young for this, and I didn't lose anyone. I just lost my leg, so I don't think I'm the right fit. And they encouraged me and said, if you believe you can make a difference, throw your name in the hat anyway, and here we are.
What about you, Jaymie? Because I think traditionally MADD Canada's also had a mother, but you obviously lost your brother DJ, so did you think about that? Was that on your mind?
A little bit. Likewise, I kind of thought they might look at me and think she's silly for applying. She's quite young, but I knew that I had an important story to share, and I felt like I was inspired by everyone I had met here, so that kind of gave me the drive and the motivation to try anyways. You never know if you try.
So I think it's fair to say you've both been inspirations to a lot of folks that you've spoken to, shared your story with, but how has being involved with Alex with MADD US, how has that benefited you?
Most of our services we talk about heavily are court accompaniment and initial emotional support after a crash and things like that. For me, it's been so long, those may not necessarily be things that I need all the time, or at least not need in the same way that I did. But not enough can be said about being a part of a community of people that truly get it, because I think no one else in our life does. And so just being a part of this community and being around people who understand what you're going through, and that sometimes a random Tuesday may be the hardest day you've had in a year, and there's people around you who understand that.
And Jaymie Lynn, I know, like Alex, one of the things that you were doing is often sharing your story, and so that can't be easy, I guess, to do, to tell your story over and over again, but obviously it's important to you to share. So what do you get back, I guess, from that?
Yeah, I mean, it is important. I think that I speak for everyone in this room when I say you really just want your loved one to be remembered and honored. And so being able to do that was extremely helpful for me. But also seeing how MADD facilitates other victims and survivors to do the same thing and share their story and for their story to be acknowledged. I mean, they help people every day, so.
And you both have a long history with your respective MADD organizations. What would you say to someone, Alex, obviously you volunteered at a very young age, what would you say to somebody else who was thinking, maybe I'll volunteer with MADD? What advice might you give?
For those that have been impacted, I think volunteering with MADD is healing in a way, and that we can be a part of what prevents this from happening to other people. But for those that haven't been impacted, I can't tell you how much I appreciate knowing that it reminds us that the rest of the world still cares. Those who come to MADD and get involved when they have no personal reason to, reminds us that the rest of the world is still paying attention to something that has had such a big impact on our life.
And Jaymie, what about you? You said your parents came first and then they kind of brought you along. But you've been connected to us for ever since then. So in terms of people who might be looking to get on, your parents have been heavily involved with, unfortunately, been joining us this weekend, but heavily involved with what would you might say to someone else thinking of?
It's meaningful work and it's fulfilling, and the connections that you're going to make are like no other. And I agree, even for people who haven't been impacted, I mean, there's opportunities to network and tap into new skills or
you've been, this is, I guess, your second year. I think you had said that your presidency comes to an end towards the end of the year. Looking back on the 2 years, are there any memories, things that really surprised you that you were able to do? Any highlights you want to share?
I think something that I've been very thankful for is people's willingness and ability to share their stories with me. You know, I can't tell you the number of times that I've gotten a message the day of that someone lost someone and has messaged me on Facebook and said, what do I do now? And people who have been willing to share their stories with me, they don't know me, but they do know that not only am I fighting because of my story, but I'm fighting for everybody else too. And so I'm so thankful for people who have been willing to be vulnerable and share their stories with me.
And Jaymie, I know a little bit more about your time, and obviously the pandemic had a huge impact, unfortunately, through your reign as president, but there must be some memories.
Oh, always. And I don't think it just is with the presidency. I mean, every conference I've attended is such a highlight in my mind, and so those memories and those people that I've met along the way are just so near and dear to my heart. Working with the national staff, having the opportunity to travel, probably not as much as I would have under normal circumstances, but you know, go to the different provinces and hear about people's loved ones and see the way we memorialize their loved ones through monument ceremonies. I mean, it's like no other. It's been an honor. I cannot pick one specific memory. There's many, and every day that I'm here with all of you and in this role, it's so fulfilling. So.
And I know when you joined, we were really excited about someone your age. We're fairly close to me, so social media was something that we're really excited about with you and Alex, I'm sure, with your folks as well. What are some of your favorite social media platforms that you're on?
My favorite social media platform is Instagram, just because I love pictures. But from a Grand National President perspective, the best has been last year I did a weekly Facebook Live, and every single Monday I got on Facebook Live for an hour, and the number of people that engaged and got on and talked was just so amazing. And so I think that was the best thing that we did last year.
And when you did that, was it you would have a topic to discuss, or was it you would just show up and people would ask questions and you just have a dialogue? How did you structure that?
A little bit of both. So sometimes there was a specific topic, whether it may be legislation or whatever else was the hot topic that week or what was going on. But sometimes I would just get on and say, I'm here. If you want to share your story with me, if you have questions for me, I'm available for that. And each time it was incredibly successful, and lots of people got on and wanted to talk and had questions. So I'm grateful for that.
And Jaymie, what's your go-to platform?
I was also going to say Instagram. It's one that I really love the reels. I feel like I came up with a new idea today, so I always gravitate to Instagram. But I've heard some really great things about YouTube and the engagement there, so obviously need to get on that bandwagon a little more. And Alex, I actually had tuned into a couple of your earlier Facebook Lives, and they were great. So yeah, I loved it. We've done a couple lives over here too from time to time, and I think they've gone pretty well.
You might need to explain to someone what reels are later, but
People have asked me to explain that since I started. That's wrong.
explain it over and over. So obviously, being the president takes up a lot of time, and people travel a lot. What do you do when you're not wearing the MADD US hat?
I watch a lot of college football. All of us know that if I can be sitting somewhere or at a football game, that is my main goal. I travel all week, every week, but on the weekend, college football is right time.
It's a very American answer.
That's what I a good one, though.
You have to say hockey.
Quite like hockey. It's funny because my husband recently asked me to go to see the college football game, so we'll see that. Yeah, no,
It's
besides
a
my,
romance.
I can imagine. Besides my other job, so a lot of my time gets taken up at the hospital where I work as a nurse practitioner. But other Yeah.
So Alex, I was hoping to talk to you a little bit. The work you guys have done down south with legislation that was passed. I don't know how many people follow U.S. politics, but from a Canadian perspective, it just seems like a monumental task to get bipartisan legislation passed. But you guys have had such an amazing success, and maybe I'll just let you talk a little bit about the legislation that's passed in terms of technology.
Sure. So it was a hard-fought battle, and it was quite a monumental success that we're very proud of. But in January of last year, we brought together what we called our war room, which was weekly Zoom calls with volunteers from across the country. And our goal was to get this legislation passed, and we did it. And that is all due to victims and volunteers telling their story, essentially strangers and members of Congress, and having the courage to bear their heart is why this was successful. And so what the legislation is, it's called the HALT Act, and it was passed and signed into law on November 15th of last year as a part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And what it will do is put drunk driving prevention technology as standard equipment on all new vehicles, as standard as seatbelts or airbags.
First of all, I want to harness her energy because she just is so passionate about the legislation that got passed. And I know she's still working really hard on it, but as we were talking, I think she said that when cars, we have all the cars on the road with this technology, up to 80% of alcohol impaired driving deaths will be prevented. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's an incredible game changer. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you, absolutely.
I think I saw pictures of you, am I correct, at the White House or with the president?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yes. It was crazy. I will say I've been twice. The first time was for VOCA, which is the Victims of Crime Act, and the second time was for this legislation. And the first time I went, I was not nervous at all. I thought it was just part of our job. I thought we had to, it was just what I signed up for. And so when I walked out, someone with our government affairs team said, "You do realize no national president has been to the White House in 20 years, right?" No. So then I was very nervous. So the second time I went back, before I went in, they said, "Well, we just want you to understand that no national president has ever been twice." And I was like, "Great, now I'm nervous." But it was a wonderful experience and great to be a part of something that, all credit to the victims and volunteers over the last year. Everyone worked so hard, and both Jaymie, Lyne, and I know, and so many in this room, I'm sure, know how hard it is to share your story over and over, especially with people you don't know, who know nothing about you. And I'm just all credit to them. It was a hard year, but we did it, and so I'm so thankful.
So, American politics looms large in Canada. It's hard to avoid and that. So who else, through that, I know you met with senators, who else, maybe who stuck out in terms of meeting that really seemed to get what you guys were fighting for?
Senator Lyne out of New Mexico, he was our champion in the Senate, but he was one that stuck out to me personally on more of a level. We also had Debbie Dingell in the House from Michigan, who was incredible, but Senator Lyne, he had never told his story before. No one knew he had been impacted by drunk driving. And very early on in the process, I met with him and shared my story with him. And he got kind of emotional, and to this point, still no one knew. And at the end of the call, he said, "Alex, you're the only person who's ever going to understand this, but I still see headlights in my nightmares. I'm going to help you." And he was hit head-on by a drunk driver when he was 19 years old and was not injured, but he had never shared that, he never talked about it. And from that point on, I knew it was going to be different, because he wasn't doing it because we asked him to, he was doing it because he gets it. And so I was so grateful for him, and I knew that he had the passion and the fight because he understands how all of us feel about this issue.
And, without naming any names or anything, but it's hard for me to believe there'd be anybody who was opposed. So were you meeting with any folks who were like, you had to convince or were against the idea? And it just seemed like
don't have a choice.
Again, I just want to echo how incredible the work was and what a difference it's going to make. And I can just tell you from a Canadian perspective, we're starting now to work on our own government. And we might be calling out some of the folks in this room to help us get that initiative forward as well. I have some more questions, but I want to open it up to anyone in the audience, or we have some folks who are joining us through various live stream platforms. Maybe they're doing reels, I don't know. No, that's not possible. So, any questions from anybody? Here we have, there's that mic in the front.
So, Alex, I saw that you have 100 days left or so on your term. How are you feeling about that? What else do you want to accomplish?
So many mixed emotions. As I'm sure you all know from Jaymie, it is a lot of travel. So while it has been fun, I won't say that I will miss never being home. So there's that side of it. On one hand, I've struggled with it a little bit because I don't feel like I've accomplished everything I set out to accomplish. I had 3 really major main goals when I came into this position, not even including the legislation, so that was a bonus. But I've accomplished 2 of those goals, and not the 3rd one, not for lack of trying, but for lack of time. So I do feel in some ways that I haven't been able to do everything I wanted to do in this position, and I still struggle every single day with the fact that we haven't stopped it yet, and I am dealing emotionally, I think, with the fact that every time I learn of a new crash, I try to figure out what I could have done that would have saved this person who I never knew, and so I still struggle a lot with that. So a lot of mixed emotions, I think, is the answer. I wish that there was more time to do everything, but I think I'd always feel that way, no matter how much time is left.
Is it a full-time job for you, Alex?
Yes,
So
quite a bit more than full time.
So what's next then?
So I plan to stay involved within MADD. It'll look a little bit different, but I'm not done. And I always said when I came into this position that I would leave MADD when I felt like I had done all that I could do. And I don't feel that way yet.
Any other questions?
Well, I was wondering how you feel when you find top-ranking politicians accused of impaired driving, and then they get off on spurious defenses. And how do members of MADD deal with that deception in not only the politician, but in the whole system, the whole justice system?
So for me, that is something that, no one is immune from drunk driving. It can affect anyone at any time, and that's what's so scary about it, I think, and the fact that it's so preventable and never had to happen. And so something that no matter who gets a DUI, no matter what their job is, no matter, anything else, one thing that I and MADD as a whole always talk about is it is our expectation that DUI be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law every single time, no excuses and no exceptions. And so while it is hard from both a personal and a professional perspective to see when I don't believe that that's happening, it doesn't change my emphasis and our emphasis that it should, no matter what.
Thank you.
We have another question.
What administration is better to deal with? Sleeping Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
You heard that, Alex. The question was, which administration is better to deal with? Sleepy Joe Biden or, I'm not sure the term, but Donald Trump?
I have only been president throughout Joe Biden's presidency, so I can't compare. But all the legislators that we've worked with nationally, we've had wonderful relationships with, except for the ones that are continuing to Yeah.
What was she like?
She had a beautiful outfit, and we talked about it, and we decided that her wardrobe budget is probably very different than mine.
Jaymie's like, she has a wardrobe budget?
That's sweet.
Any other questions? I don't know if we have any through the platforms. So Alex, in terms of what we have on here,
Yeah, I have a question relating to what she did with the legislation. And before COVID, I wrote a letter to our Prime Minister Trudeau. But because COVID started, I never sent it. I mentioned to the ladies of my group that I did that. I never read the letter to them. Actually, Caroline was going to edit it. And that letter, I still have it. In my letter, I spoke about MADD. A little bit about my story. It's like all of our stories are really different, not much difference. But what I asked him at the end of the letter is, do you think that you could come and see our people, they suffer, the stories that you will be shocked of what happened, that unless you are related to those persons, nobody knows. Because when sometimes I talk about my story about some people that ask me, oh, are you married, or, I have no choice to tell. Yes, I was married. I'm very happily married, and I lost everything. And do you think that MADD Canada can do kind of the same idea, approaching to the government? When I go to a store and something is not done right, I don't go to the till, I go to the manager, right? And I think that's the best, more efficient action it will be taken. With good manners, with good approach, with all the protocol necessary. And I wonder if MADD Canada could do something like that. Not tomorrow, he might be too busy, but in the future.
yeah, just following on Margarita's question, Alex, what advice would you have for us? Because we want to have the same kind of legislation in Canada.
Absolutely. So, as far as can you do it, yes. I think, we can't hurt to try. We can always accomplish more than we think we can. I will tell you that every single person I ever talked to said you can't do this when we started last year. And we did it. So to answer whether I think you can do it, absolutely. I will tell you that it will be more of a fight than you could ever imagine. Not a single part of it was easy. It consumed my whole life and the whole lives of so many of our staff members as well. However, I do encourage you to find someone who's willing to help you. We know, at least here in the U.S., that 2 out of 3 people on average will be impacted by drunk driving in their lifetime. So just to that Senator Lujan example, we never know who has a story or who has a perspective. And you're right, people often don't care unless it happens to them. And we don't want it to happen to anyone else. But we know that people have a passion because they've been impacted. And so find someone who's willing to help you, find someone who's willing to walk forward with you, to answer your questions about the legislative process, to tell you where to go next. That was really what got us to the finish line, was we just had so many people who were willing to have the hard conversations, to find others who were willing to walk it with us. And that's why we call those Zoom calls still our war room. It was 75 people every single Thursday night from across the country. None of us had connections, none of us knew people, none of us anything else, but we did it together, and we did every step of it together. If I didn't know something, someone else did, and vice versa. So I just encourage you that when you're ready to start together. Don't try and go at it alone. It's very discouraging.
And we'll say, I've been to the Prime Minister's office in the past. It doesn't seem to have the same excitement stuff. But we do hope to get there one day. Any other have about a year left. Is there any questions you want to ask Alex?
Oh, I just find it's interesting because the role is the same, but also a little bit different. I guess I do have one question. How much background in the legislation did you have before stepping into this role? It's definitely been
Quite a
the
bit.
biggest learning curve for me.
Sure. So I had quite a bit of background in legislation. When I was a senior in high school, I represented the Ignition Interlock Bill in my state of Kentucky. And then both in 2018 and 2020, I worked very closely with and represented Marcy's Law to pass in my home state of Kentucky. Both times, we had to do it twice, unfortunately. And then I had worked on federal legislation with the National Amputee Coalition previously. So not all drug driving related, some is of course victims' rights and prosthetic legislation, but I did have prior experience in both state and federal legislation. Not to this level, we haven't gotten from the past for the amputee coalition, but I at least had this experience of starting and having those meetings.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I guess appreciating as well, you were impacted a little bit younger, so you definitely have a bit of a head start there, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting that involved while you're in high school.
In high school, yeah.
It's,
I'm like, wow, that was such a wow factor.
So, have you ever thought about entering life of politics yourself?
The number of people that say that is crazy. Someone actually said it on TV a couple weeks ago. There was a talk show that I was on, and she was like, "When are you going to run for office?" So who knows? I'm 25, and so we all like to joke that when most MADD national presidents, at least here in the U.S., retire from MADD, they retire. When I retire from MADD, I will be 26. The world is my oyster, I guess.
Well, that's great. I'll do one last shout out for questions if anyone's got it. All right. Well, Alex, thank you so much. Jaymie, Lynn, you both, I think both of our organizations have benefited from having people who are so passionate and so accomplished and so well spoken and communicate so well and so willing to share your story at such a young age that I think you're an inspiration. Even an old guy like me is inspired by both of you, and I think to the folks in the room. I can't imagine the size of your country, how many people that you've touched, Alex. I know how many people Jaymie Lynn has touched in our much smaller country, but I just want to thank you, A, for being here, but thank you for your service. I'm kind of sad that your term is coming to an end because you've accomplished so much. I know you didn't accomplish everything, but I can tell you, watching from Canada, the stuff that you've done is pretty amazing. And Jaymie Lynn knows how we feel about her. She's got a year left, so we're gonna, we're still gonna put her to work, but she's already made such a difference. So, thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. Jaymie Lynn can return the favor. That's no problem. I'm offering you up to help out with that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Anytime.
And thank you, Jaymie Lynn, as well, for sharing. I mean, you share your story so much, you do it so passionately, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate from Canada all that you do, but I think for many of these folks who've never had a chance to hear you speak or meet you, to know that you're leading the fight in impaired driving in Canada is pretty inspiring as well. So, thank you. All right, thanks, Alex. We're going to let you get back. I don't know if there's any college games on tonight, but we'll let you get to them.
On Sunday, right?
Thank you. I'm not gonna
Thank you. And so that's the sort of end of our session tonight. It's some free time. I think James mentioned if you're interested, people sort of make